What is up, you amazing people? It is Nima here, and today we're going to talk about Cyberpunk 2077 for the Switch 2. Full discrepancy, I have not got to Phantom Liberty yet, which is like the DLC. Just haven't started that part, been really busy, as you can imagine, with a lot of other Switch stuff, but I can tell you, I have played Cyberpunk 2077 for like 3 different consoles and 3 different builds, and so I think I can give you a fair assessment of this game, as well as comparing it to the other systems, and if it's really a necessity for you to pick it up. Before we get into that, please hit that like and subscribe button. Help this channel grow, means the world to me, and costs you absolutely nothing except for your time, which is invaluable and you won't be able to get it back. So yeah, maybe not, honestly. Anyway, let's get back into it. By the way, I'm just going to start calling it Cyberpunk. It seems ridiculous to say the whole title, if I'm being honest. But before I actually get into some of the Switch features and how it runs on the Switch, I just want to go over the basics of this game, just for anyone who's never played it or hasn't really heard much about it. Well, Cyberpunk is a first-person RPG open-world experience that, unlike its contemporaries, which would be comparable to Skyrim or Fallout or whatever, Cyberpunk takes place in a futuristic environment where there are things like cars, incredibly busy cities, a lot of businesses, and of course, a ton of people. Just everywhere there's people. I'm not saying the other games don't have busy areas or there's not certain hubs, but Cyberpunk is a little bit different because while you are in Night City and it's this massive, super busy area, a lot of the game is played out here. As where you look at other games, there's a lot more traveling and there's different cities and things like that. It's almost like it is an open world and it feels open world when you're in the city because of how big the city is, but it also doesn't feel like a traditional open world, if that makes sense. So in this game, you will be playing V, a person of one of 3 backgrounds that you get to choose. They essentially go from being raised as a nomad to a street kid, or someone who is a little bit wealthy who's in the tech industry. The game's intro will be different based upon which one you pick, as well as some of your other dialogue that you have will change a little bit, but it doesn't make a big difference. It's just sort of what fits your character better. But either way, all paths lead to Jackie. As you are on your way to Night City for some odd reason, like I said, there's 3 different options for this, and they all lead to Jackie, who becomes your best friend. He's also a fixer, which is essentially kind of like a mercenary, if you will, somebody who gets paid to just handle different jobs, most of them involving violence, but some can just be transportation or being a representative for a client who's making a deal. Any of those things are on the table. You're kind of new to all of this, and so you warm up to Jackie really quick and you guys become really good friends. You also become quite well known as fixers, to the point where some very prominent people are looking to hire you. And in one of these cases, it happens to be somebody by the name of Evelyn, and she wants you to acquire some data for her. Now it just so happens that this data is owned by this world's largest Nepo baby, and it happens to be in his penthouse. So you guys have got to find a way to plan a really good heist, and there are some missions prior to this, some optional missions that you can do that will give you some resources and help you bulk up a little bit before this, but it's not necessary. Now during this heist, things go a little south and not as they're planned, so you end up having to hide that data in you. And yes, you are cybernetic, so you can implant things like that. Unfortunately, the data on there happened to be, well, alive and using that. Now, it's kind of infested in you. In enters Keanu Reeves. Now you gotta figure out how to get him out of there, and there's a whole lot of stuff that kicks off after this that I don't want to get into because it will ruin the story. But I will say, a lot of the dialogue, a lot of the conversations you have, and a lot of the characters are very well written, and they very much seem to have like their own life, their own personality. You are of course aware you're talking to an NPC, but it doesn't feel like it. There's room for immersion in this game. And while Keanu Reeves sometimes reminds me of like Clippy from back of the day, you're just trying to do something and you're trying to click it out, like, go away Clippy, I don't need you. Keanu can be that way sometimes, but also you really start to get used to his presence and actually welcome it at times. And I do believe that the story and the writing is the reason why this game wasn't just completely exiled when it had that horrible launch. A lot of people knew that there was something good here, just there were so many bugs that needed to be fixed. But it wasn't just the storytelling and the writing, it's also the gameplay itself. Very solid. It's a first-person shooter where you'll often find yourself between gunfights and using stealth. There's a ton of different weapons that you can collect and upgrades, as well as your own upgrades and personal skills. As I said, it does have some RPG elements, and one of them is upgrading your own abilities. Now, this actually is one of the funner things in the game, as there is an actual doctor you go to who will put implants in you to make you stronger or better, give you better grip or eyesight or whatever it might be. And so that's a really fun way to kind of upgrade your character, as well as having like the traditional RPG way of leveling up. And so I do know that the main focus of this is, okay, but how does it perform on the Switch 2? What features does the Switch 2 have? Well, one of them, most notably, is the different ways that you can actually engage in combat. It does have gyroscope aiming, or you can actually use the mouse, or just your traditional analog, whatever works best for you. I did try all the different options, and I just used the traditional analog stick, and in my experience, the controls felt great. And to me, the other modes felt just as good. It's just I'm more used to the analog stick, so I stuck with that. And I know one of the biggest concerns is, well, how did it run? And I can definitely say, well, it ran a lot better on the Switch 2 than it did on my PS4 when it first came out. But that's besides the point. No, it actually ran really good. Does it have the highest FPS or peak performance or anything like that? No, absolutely not. But it does play really, really well. And for me, it wasn't performance as much as visually that I noticed the difference, and that being compared to a PlayStation 5. So yeah, there's a little bit of a drop off, but honestly, I was impressed with what the Switch 2 could do with this game. I was also surprised that there was no problems, there was no lagging. I never had an issue of screen tearing, of the game like just freezing up, or really any major stuttering or lagging during some like chaotic scenes. You know, when you would expect that to happen. Nothing really comes to mind anyway, at least in my experience. Now, will it happen to you? I don't know. I can't say for sure that it won't, but again, in my experience, I never really had anything noticeable. There might have been something here or there during like a really big gunfight, but nothing really stands out, to be honest. And it really did feel right at home on the Switch 2, to the point where I'm definitely gonna finish the game on my Switch 2, even though I think I'm further on one of my saves for the PS5. But it just feels better in that handheld mode, that big screen. Everything looks and performs really good. So as far as the game is concerned, I would definitely give this game like an 8.5. I love all the elements about the game, the RPG aspects, the upgrading, the leveling, the customization, even the fact that you can have romance with different characters, some of the free will that is in this game, and some of the things that you can do that I definitely can't show you here on YouTube anyway. But I love all the world building and storytelling, optional missions, the combat. There is really a lot to like with this game. And I will say, it is really nice that the Nintendo Switch 2 version comes fully on the cartridge, which is really important to me because it is a 64 gig download. So if you have it on the cartridge, you don't have to worry about that. But it's also the fact that it comes with the DLC. So you're really getting a very good deal for something that even on other markets is actually more expensive. We're seeing the exact opposite with the Switch tax. Now I know that this situation is an outlier, and I'm sure the Switch tax will come back in many other forms. In fact, it already has. But in this one scenario, take advantage of it while you can, and make sure to grab this game physically where it's all on the cart. But that's just my thoughts on Cyberpunk 2077 for the Switch 2. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think the visuals look like. Most of this was through my Elgato capture card, so should hold up. But yeah, let me know if you've played this on a different system, if you're thinking about picking it up for the Switch 2, or if you're going to pick it up when you get a Switch 2. Either way, let me know your thoughts down below. I appreciate each and every one of you. Love y'all. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.